Hey there Hawkers, hope you all had a wonderful week after our first win of the season. Just before we jump into the review, I'm going to briefly skim over our matches in round 4 and round 5. Didn't really feel like making a video for these games just from sheer heartbreak I felt in the days following them, and both for very different reasons obviously. Our gather round clash against the Pies was the best we had looked all year up to that point. Despite a very bad first half performance, we were able to get ourselves into the game by matching Collingwood's intensity around the footy and asserting some dominance out of the stoppages. Along with this, we were also able to transition the ball from defense to attack pretty easily compared to the first half, which allowed our better kicks to get into the game. We stormed home, but a late miss by youngster Connor McDonald saw us go down by just 2 points in the end. Here were my votes for the day, Jai Newcomb finally polls his first vote of the season after a very slow start. His presence at the stoppage in the second half really made a difference in being able to get first use of the footy and preventing Collingwood's dangerous runners from getting the ball. He equalled his career high in clearances and also kicked a very nice goal, and I think he is deserving of a vote. Karl Amon showed Hawks fans why we brought him over from Port Adelaide with a terrific game off half back. He used the ball so well, especially in that second half, and led the ground for meters gained at 903. I really rate his move to half-back so far. We just need to hope that him and the other rebounding defenders can build more consistency over the next few weeks so we can score more reliably from our defensive half. Very deserving of the 2 votes. I think you all know where this was going, and there was no player more deserving of the 3 votes than Blake Hardwick. I have to admit I was very skeptical about his move up forward at the beginning of the season, but I think this proved everyone wrong. His ability to read the ball from being such a reliable defender saw him outmark the likes of Jeremy Howe multiple times, which is no easy feat. He is clearly also a very accurate set shot for goal as well, and his performance in that third quarter is what sparked our comeback. I don't really want to say much about the Gold Coast game. That was genuinely one of the worst performances I've seen from this football club in my 23 years of existence. And even though we have had bigger losses on the scoreboard in the past few years, we just looked completely non-competitive against a team that we should really be on par with when you look at both teams' age profiles. This was just a disgraceful performance overall. Our midfielders could not get their hands on the footy, and our forwards struggled against Gold Coast's solid defence. There weren't many that were deserving of votes for this game, but I managed to find 1 vote for James Sicily. This is kind of a pity vote if I'm being honest. On any other day, his stat line wouldn't be very deserving of a vote, but I couldn't really find anyone else, so he gets the vote. 2 votes go to Karl Amon, our number 1 disposal getter on the ground, and used the ball well by foot despite all his teammates around him not being able to win the ball. 3 votes go to Finn McGuinness, kicking 3 goals, and was our most promising looking forward on the night. Much like Hardwick the week prior, his performance kept the scoreboard from looking much worse. Anyway, to shine a more positive light on this video, we will now head into our round 6 preview against North Melbourne. Heading into this game, there was a lot more feeling around it than what there normally would be for a game like this. Both teams came off absolute thumpings in round 5 and were winless for the year. To top this off, this is always going to be a little bit of a grudge match, with Clarkson coaching against his former club and former premiership captain. The game started with North kicking 2 early goals. I was very nervous at this point because we just couldn't get our hands on the footy, and it looked a lot like the game last week. But we were able to get ourselves into the game due to North's horrible defending around the ground. It was clear that the boys had a tough week at training. We were able to be more physical around the ball. Duke was looking really dangerous early, and goals to Gunston, Amon and Moore gave us a 7-point lead heading into the second quarter, which is where we did the majority of our scoring for the game. We kicked 8 goals to North's 3, and even though North were looking very poor defensively, you could tell the boys were eager to show Hawks fans what we look like when we were at our best. Our pressure around the footy was nothing short of elite. Our pressure gauge was literally off the charts during this quarter, and the North Melbourne Kangaroos could not get their hands on the footy because of this. Duke and Nash were running right over the top of Davies, Uniacke and the rest of North's young midfield, and the game was pretty much settled at halftime. Third quarter was a bit of a weird one. We continued our constant flow of inside 50s, but North were actually able to rebound a little more effectively, and it took us 13 minutes to open up the scoring for the term. We were still winning it soundly out of stoppage, but North started to lift their pressure a bit and finished with more third quarter tackles than us. Despite us taking our foot off the gas a little bit, we still outscored them by a few points, and the margin was relatively unchanged from halftime. The last quarter was fairly similar to the third. North looked better than they did in the first half, but we still ultimately outscored them. Final margin being 113-68, a comprehensive victory when all said and done. Moving on to the votes, Connor Nash has silenced a few haters out there with a very solid performance out of the middle against a team he really likes to play against. His big body was handy against a young North outfit, and he finished the game with 32 disposals, 10 clearances, and 15 contested possessions. Very deserving of a vote, and he's honestly unlucky to poll higher. Jai Newcomb finally had his breakout game for the year after a very slow start to 2024. He also finished with 32 disposals and completely bullied North midfielders with a very strong performance out of the middle, gathering 9 clearances and 14 contested possessions. He also displayed much improved ball use, getting 84% disposal efficiency for the day. Hopefully this performance can boost his confidence and we can see more of the Jai Newcomb who made the All-Australian squad last year. 2 votes over to you, Duke. Dylan Moore also had his best game for the year, booting 4 goals and getting 20 touches of the footy is no easy feat, even against North. His work rate up and down the ground was elite and once again showed how important he is to this team. This was a pretty easy decision for the 3 votes. Now it's just up to him to keep performing at this level. Moving on to our round 7 matchup against the Sydney Swans on Sunday Arvo, the good old graveyard shift for the second week in a row. Sydney are probably right up there with GWS and Geelong for premiership favourites right now, so the boys will have their hands full to make this game a competitive one. Sydney are a young team like us, but the quality of their more experienced players and a superior system is probably what separates us. The midfield battle will be one to watch on Sunday. Both teams are massively underperforming for the year out of the middle. Both are bottom 4 in clearances and right around the same mark for contested possessions. These teams are honestly pretty evenly matched statistically at the moment, which is a bit strange when you look at where both teams are on the ladder. But Sydney have beaten some quality sides in Melbourne, Collingwood and Essendon, as well as beating Gold Coast, who conversely belted us just a couple weeks ago. They did have a shock loss to Richmond at the MCG though, so saying we have no chance to win this game is just silly. If we match the same pressure and intensity around the footy as last week, then there's no reason we can't come out with a win against this team who admittedly struggles at the MCG. We will probably need them to have an off day, and their performance of their stars like Golden, Warner and Blakey will be a huge factor in the result. Our defenders will need to be at their best against a firing forward line. McDonald, Amadi, Hayward and Heaney are all having great seasons, and we can't forget about Papley, who loves playing against us. On top of this, our forward line will need to also be at their best if we are to kick a winning score. A lot of responsibility will be placed on the shoulders of Mitch Lewis, who is back from injury. Having Gunston will help, but I really want to see Jack Ginnivan have a breakout game on Sunday. He has been solid so far this year, but he's a big game player. He's a premiership winner, Anzac Day medalist, and knows how to play against the best teams, and Hawks fans will look to him to have a big day. The return of Will Day will also change the way our midfield looks a little bit and should hopefully even up the stoppage battle. Overall, I think we do have a chance of coming out as winners against the Swans. We will need to play our best footy and build on the momentum we created last week, and the Swans will probably need to have a bad day similar to that Richmond game if we are to be any chance. All I am hoping for is a good competitive performance from the boys regardless of the result. For my prediction, I'm going to tip the Swans by 18 points. They're just a better team. They know how to win. I don't really see how we're going to get up if they're having a good day, to be honest. Anyway, that's all from me, Hawkers. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and I better see a good crowd at the G on Sunday. We'll see you in the next video. Peace out.